All right. I, Mayor Matt Girding, call the December 9th, 2024 City Council meeting for the City of Somersworth to order. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Pepin.
Yep.
Vinson.
He is excused.
Gibson. Here. Parity Catanzaro.
Here.
Michaud.
Yeah.
Witham.
Here.
Goodwin.
Here.
Cameron.
Here.
Barry.
Here.
Councilor Parity Catanzaro will lead the council in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I feel like we should have the person who leads it, like, come to that podium or something. I've been thinking about this. We'll see. Maybe I'll throw that up for the new year. I was just thinking of that. Thoughts by the mayor as he runs the meeting. All right. Next on the agenda is the recognition of our indigenous people, our native ancestral Americans. This meeting takes place on Indokina, which is the unceded traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land, waterways, living beings, and the Alnabuk, the people who have stewarded Indokina throughout the generations. Item 4 on the agenda are any scheduled public hearings. We have 3 tonight. So first up is a public hearing on Ordinance 12-25, which is a supplemental appropriation to provide funding to Cooperative Alliance for Seacoast Transportation, also known as COAST, which, if approved, would appropriate $70,783 from the Municipal Transportation Fund to the Community Services section of our budget, and would fully fund COAST's local support request. Is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight regarding Ordinance 12-25? Anybody who wishes to speak towards Ordinance 12-25? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our next public hearing. We have a public hearing for Resolution 19-25, which is a vote to repurpose funds available from the bond issued for the Cemetery Road Complete Streets project for the High Street Sidewalk Reconstruction Project, which, if approved, would utilize the $236,332 of an unutilized fund from the Cemetery Road Complete Streets project and put it towards the reconstruction of the west side sidewalk of High Street from West High Street to South Street. Is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight regarding Resolution 19-25? Anyone who wishes to speak tonight? All right, seeing none, we will go to a public hearing for Resolution 21-25, which is a City Council vote to authorize a bond to reconstruct Wayland Drive and Flynn Street, which, if approved, would authorize a bond not to exceed $1,260,000 for the reconstruction of Wayland Drive and Flynn Street. Is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight regarding Resolution 21-25? Anyone for Resolution 21-25? All right, seeing none, that will close out our public hearings this evening. Next up, we have item 5, which is comments by visitors. City Council and the Mayor's Office welcome all visitors and encourage you to voice your opinions and views at council meetings. In accordance with Council Rules 7-C, a time limit of 5 minutes per person shall be in effect unless the council wishes to suspend the rules. Speaker shall not enter into a debate with any persons, the mayor, city council members, city manager, or department heads. Is there anyone who wishes to speak this evening? Yes, we got a couple. Thank you. If you'd state your name and the ward in which you live, appreciate it.
My name's Richard Brooks. I live at 18 Linden Street, Ward 1. And I'd like to speak tonight, assuming there'd be no opportunity to speak to this later, the item under other, the petition for better meeting notices, extending public meeting notices and improvements. I don't remember my exact title now. It was a little wordy. Obviously, I collected over 120 signatures for this. I only needed 61, if I recall correctly. It's basically just a initiative to try to get better notices that reach out and grab people's attention. You know, I'm not denying that the city does its best to meet its required public notices, which of course is only 24 hours, posted in 2 places. I'm well aware they do all that. It just being posted on the city hall and in the library. Very few people go there to look at that. Of course, they can go to the website and see the calendar and see the notices posted there. But even for me to post these up on my Facebook page, Richard Brooks Keeping Somersworth Informed, I have to check this twice a day, and I've even missed a meeting or two. So it's very tough to stay on top of all that. And ultimately, what I'm looking for is just better than 24 hours notice. I threw up 7 days as just a place marker. I didn't realize that I had to call it an ordinance or reference it as an ordinance, write it as such when I did this. So obviously it got put in limbo where it went to Government Operations Committee, discussed there. I attended that meeting, listened to the concerns there. They allowed me to speak on it there as well, but I'm obviously just trying to get out any information I can to all of you for this. Certainly open for questions if you guys want to take that opportunity. That's your choice, of course. Basically looking for something that can either be a text alert, email, sign up that somebody can sign up for and have meeting notices that's sent to them, so they don't have to go and search the website every day to try to catch whatever meeting they may want to be interested in. This would then come to them. They can open up their inbox, the text alert, whatever, and say, oh yeah, that interests me. Maybe I should show up and express my concerns, thoughts, opinions, insight, whatever the case may be. It's just a better way to get community involved, and I think Somersworth can do better in that sense. And by reaching out with some sort of alert, like I said, text. I'm not even a fan of the Facebook social media. Unfortunately, too many times I see stuff posted after the fact, so I'm not sure that's the proper way to go. But I put up several ideas into that petition, hoping that something, like I said, just something that people can sign up for, and it reaches out and lets them know so that they know what to expect and can make plans and show up and present some information should they feel inclined to do so. So again, always willing to answer questions on it, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, others wishing to make public comment this evening? Yes, come on up. Again, if you'd state your name and the ward in which you live.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie McNair. I'm at 11 Noble Street in Somersworth. Esteemed City Council, City staff, and Honorable Mayor Girding, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Over the past year, I've stood before this body many times, more than I've ever expected I would speak in front of a City Council. And whether I've been here seeking the city's financial support on behalf of the Chamber, delivering the tough news about our Chamber's challenges, or sharing excitement about our path forward, or simply lending my support to the city's efforts, it has been a privilege to work alongside you all in service to our community. Most recently, I've been collaborating with Councillor Cameron to support the upcoming Festival of Lights contest, a wonderful event that celebrates the spirit of this great city. And it's through these partnerships that I've come to better understand the incredible commitment that it takes to move this community forward. Tonight, however, I come before you for a different and truly special reason, to honor one of your own. On behalf of the Falls Chamber of Commerce, I am proud to recognize City Manager Bob Belmore as our 2024 Citizen of the Year.
Ooh.
For over 20 years, Mr. Belmore has demonstrated unwavering dedication to Somersworth and our surrounding communities. His steady leadership, thoughtful decision-making, and deep care for the people he serves has been the foundation of so much of the progress we see today. Whether navigating complex challenges or celebrating community triumphs, Bob has been a constant advocate for what's been best for our city. From infrastructure improvements to fostering economic development and ensuring city operations run smoothly, Bob's contributions have often happened behind the scenes. But those of us who've worked with him know how instrumental he has been in shaping Somersworth into the thriving, welcoming city we are proud to call home. On behalf of the Chamber and the community, Bob, thank you for your tireless efforts and your leadership. Your legacy is one of dedication, compassion, and progress, and it is with heartfelt gratitude that we celebrate you as the Falls Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year for 2024. Thank you. I yield my time. I've always wanted to say that.
Thank you very much.
I knew you couldn't come, so I brought your award.
Yeah, go on down. Go accept your award. We're going to do photos and everything. Come on.
Swear you shall get misty-eyed.
You'll notice there's a Post-it note on the logo, and that's because our new logo is on all the awards this year. So it's still a secret.
It's still a secret. I see. I see.
Thank you.
There you
Really
are.
humbled and appreciate it.
That's very good. Thank you so much.
Oh, wait,
We'll just hug.
hug.
I hug it out. Where's the money? No, somebody actually voted for you.
Woo! Oh,
This
too
is
good.
her.
Congratulations. All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak during public comment? Thank you. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and ward in which you live.
Hi, I'm Allison Visser, Ward 1. I actually have two comments. I'll try to keep them short. But the first one is while I was already here tonight, I just wanted to express my gratitude and appreciation for the Somersworth library staff. I volunteer with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we go there quite a bit with the 10-year-old I work with, and it's become part of our routine, and they're just really amazing staff there. They do really wonderful things. I've taken her to all sorts of other libraries, and she always wants to come back to Somersworth, and it's the staff there are wonderful, and usually I would find somebody's boss and tell them how well they're doing. But while I'm here, I know a lot of you either work with them or work with the committee, so just wanted to say that. My second comment has to do with the water tank, and I know that's not on the agenda tonight, but we didn't realize, Luke and I live at 21 Hamilton Street, which is right across the street from the current and proposed location for the water tower. So we've been interested in this for a while. We knew it was coming up, but we didn't know what the process was. And we're concerned about the proposed location that was shown on the website, the rendering, where it's right at the top of Hamilton Street. It's the first thing that you see is sort of kind of protruding out there. And we just, we really hope that there are other locations. We know the water tank has to be kind of there, and we appreciate that, and it has to be at the top of the hill. But we're hoping that there can be some consideration given to whether the tank could be moved closer to the tree line or somewhere where there's more masking. I know that some of the concerns with the proposed locations had to do with the skate park, and I know there's some cost associated with that, but we'd be interested in understanding where those costs come from, what are the alternatives, has there been any consideration given to anything else? I know, some of you probably remember the pool that was there. There were tennis courts, so like all those things seem like kind of permanent to us, but over the course of the span of a water tank, a lot of them will, change over a lifetime. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about the long-term implications. We're also, I know this isn't subject to the Historical District Commission rules, but where, our house is right there, and if if we make any changes to our house, if we want to paint our trim beige instead of white or white instead of beige, then, we have to go through the committee, and we appreciate that the town sets up these committees because it cares about the visual character of the city and takes into account all of those things. And the water tank, I think it's like 120 years old. I'm guessing the new one will hopefully last at least that long. So if we're going to put something there that's going to last multiple lifetimes potentially, that will impact, the overall setting, the planning for that park, which is one of our gems, which is one of our best, resources here. I'd like to understand what the 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plans are for how we're organizing things around that park, and how that tower might actually implicate it. I know also thinking about the cost of the replacement of or how it would impact the skate park. that there's cost associated with that. I know there was also talk about painting the tower. I think we should look at, or I'd hope that we could look at whether there's some offset. If the tower is hidden more because it's closer to the trees, maybe we don't need to paint it as much if it's set back there. So I just, I know there's more committee meetings. I appreciate the sense that we were trying to figure out when this is going to be reviewed, and if there's any way to notify us of when this will be reviewed or include the public in that process, because we're not always plugged into the agenda items, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening for public comment? Anybody else who wishes to speak? You would
my
say
name
your
is
name
Luke.
and ward. Thank you.
My name is Luke Perchik. I'm from Ward 1. My ally is my significant other. I would just like to build up on that. When I heard about the tank being replaced early in June or sometime around that, I reached out to the Public Works, and I emailed concerning that I wanted to be plugged in every design process to hear what it takes, how it's being laid out. And at the very beginning, I was told that it's just going to, the engineers are sort of working out the kinks and what sizing, etc. To my understanding, it accelerated to a point where I didn't know anything much. All of a sudden, I'm waking up to where the city posts a rendering of the proposed tower next to the existing tower, and it struck me that it's already almost is a done deal. If you take this rendering, you look at it and you say, it's kind of like, is it there? I want you to engage the public, the abutters, the people on the hill in this sort of process. It's important that what Ali said about the engagement, but it's also being like an open book. And it's important that if we can talk about it, where this tower is going to be, what are the options. I don't want an engineer to come up with a solution to give you 4 different sites, and one of them is to put the tower right on the children's playground. That was one of the suggestions. If I would have seen that, I would have been really concerned. And I just want you to sort of engage us, and I, not only through the sort of the website, but through, if I'm responding in an email, make sure that I'm on a list somewhere that I'm being contacted. I appreciate your efforts in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening for public comment? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item 6, which is approval of the consent calendar. The chair will obtain a motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes the minutes of the city council meeting held on November 12th, 2024. Motion appears to be made by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Pepin. Question for the council is on the adoption of the consent calendar. If you're in favor of the motion, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Consent calendar is adopted with 1 abstention. All right. Item 7 on our agenda is comments by city councilors. Are there any comments this evening by city councilors? Yes, Councillor Goodwin.
Yes, thank you. As our Hamilton Street residents just mentioned, I had a meeting with the mayor before this to discuss the water tower at the Pines Park and our very early high-level discussions on location. As other councilors might recall, during our conversations about it, I shared their concerns around the locations, and we had received, I'd asked for some feedback and the renderings to sort of better understand the impact that placement could have. But in light of residents voicing their concerns, and there were a number of other residents at this meeting that weren't able to attend the council meeting tonight, I think it'd be beneficial to send this issue back to committee so that the community members that are now aware of it, that weren't previously aware of it, have an opportunity to engage with the committee and maybe even with the engineer to better understand the opportunity to relocate this somewhere that might be more have less impact on the neighborhood and more aesthetically pleasing. And at the same time, for us to think, to vet some of the early assumptions we had around cost. Obviously, we're trying to manage cost here as well. So with that, I guess I'd like to make a motion or ask the mayor to refer this item back to the Public Works Committee.
Yeah, I will be referring this to Public Works. I think some of the things I jotted down while they were talking were to maybe look into costs and feasibility, alternative locations and costs associated with those, more understanding of costs associated with the skate park and the outbuilding, the
Recreation
building, and then some of the concerns about appearance and longevity for the building. So I assume Public Works is the right location for that. We'll send it over to them.
Yep.
And you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you. And I would just ask, I can obviously send an email, but it would be useful if the manager could maybe provide an existing conditions plan and or topo plan, topography plan to me and or other council members, because I think that would be helpful for us to understand some of the constraints the engineers are working with. And I personally would like to see those.
Thank you. Other councilors? Councilor Witham?
Yes, thank you. As chair of the Public Works and Environment Committee, I am glad to revisit this consideration. I think as one or both speakers mentioned, this is, at least for all of us, a forever decision, right? Because it's going to be there for the rest of our lives. I'd like to believe it wouldn't be, but I'm a realist, right? The current water tower is either the third or fourth oldest operational water tower in the country, the last I knew. So it's fairly historic. More importantly, I think, for the residents on that in the area, and I think for the community, because it is sort of a beacon, the hilltop, it's iconic, right? So for those that don't know, my adopted spot is the ball field up there. If you drive by during nicer weather, I aimlessly drive around on a tractor. Trust me, I'm actually doing something though, or blowing leaves, or this time of year keeping people off the soft dirt, or whatever it might be. I've grown to recognize the iconic blue water tower there. So I do recognize that whatever we do there is going to be radical change, and it is a forever decision. So I think we need to be very mindful of how we approach this, certainly for the neighborhood, I think for the community. And when I say the community, we do need to be mindful of cost. As I tell people, you can do anything. It's just how much do you want to spend on it, right? And I think one of the reasons we sort of began to acquiesce around the location that we threw up on the website, and by the way, that idea worked exactly as intended, to solicit feedback, and maybe we could have been a bit more purposeful about that, no question. What is the feedback? But I think we need to now work with our engineers to understand the true cost elements. I think we at least recognize that the standpipe, the water tower, needs to go somewhere on that property because it's got to go on city property. It's got to go on the hill for elevation purposes, and that's the only city property on the hill. There's a lot of infrastructure that already exists. As you know, the water comes from the water plant on Wells Street and is pumped in a very large diameter pipe to the water tower, and then from there out to the community. So the pipe from the water plant is already in. It goes to that location. So if you move it somewhere else in the city, we're talking about a major reroute and millions and millions and millions of dollars, which is just probably cost prohibitive. So we know it has to go up there, but can we place it better? I think that's a great conversation to have, and I think we need to vet it out more thoroughly with the engineers so that we can at least have a good understanding of cost implications. And if we take up other recreational opportunities, where do we then put those, and what are the costs associated with that? So I think those are all things that we need to be mindful of. So I get it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Barry.
Just a real quick comment. I wanted to say thank you to the abutters for coming and talking about their concerns with the water tower, but just real quick, in regard to the Historic District Commission, just to clarify for anybody watching at home, we don't regulate color. So if you want to do white or cream or anything, we don't tell you you can't do purple or pink. Please don't. But I just want to make sure that everybody at home watching doesn't think we do regulate color. So sorry.
The former HCC member in me also was like, should I say something? But I appreciate the comments. Other counselors, Counselor Parity Catanzaro.
Yes, I also want to thank our community members for coming forward. It's very, very helpful. I also think we could be a little bit more proactive in reaching out to abutters, and so thank you for flagging that. I hope that we can, I don't know what the easiest way to do this, but if it's going back to Public Works Committee, perhaps we can send letters to the folks in the immediate area to let them know that that's on the agenda and just provide people with an alternative way to email committee members if they can't make that meeting. And perhaps some sort of outline of, where we are in the process, that it's early and here's a list that's not exhaustive of some of the other committees that it will be going to. And I think this is a good example of the type of thing that Mr. Brooks was talking about having some proactive ways for people to sign up to our existing email list. I also just wanted to add to the list of folks that we make sure we get input from, whoever our resident wildlife impact. I don't know if it's our Conservation Commission or if it's somebody on staff in Public Works, but I know there's there's specific owls that live there. So somebody else I talked to was like, oh, I'm glad it's further from the tree line because there's a family of owls that lives there. So just to understand, what's the balance of taking all of these things into consideration would be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Gibson.
Okay, this is more of a question than a comment. But speaking of the butters, there's a notification process for abutters when there's something going before the planning board for construction and so forth. Would it be possible to institute for any major city construction project that we follow the same type of procedure so that any affected abutters would be aware of what's going on, and then they could either follow up or just be aware of what's happening?
Even for this project that would go before the planning board, but I think we're trying to get that abutter input sooner, because once it goes to the planning board, engineering's done. I mean, the thing's on its way to being built, so it's a little late in the game there.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a fair question. I'm not 100% sure where, administratively, we would place that, whether that's just like a policy decision or a ordinance change, but I'm going to flag that for the city manager maybe to look into, or if he knows, I would love that too.
Yeah. My point being that anybody who's making a major construction project has to notify abutters. So just think the city should follow the same process to ensure that people are aware and not left out of the process until the last minute.
I appreciate that.
We could have saved a couple of meetings, maybe.
Thank you. Other comments from counselors? Okay. Counselor Cameron, was that hand? I'm sorry. Or were you just, okay. I have my eyes tonight. Thank you. All right, that will move us on to item 8, which is communications. We have 2 communications this evening. The first communication is regarding the resignation of Ward 5 School Board member Gemma Soldati. City Clerk, will you please read the resignation?
Sunday, December 1st, 2024. Dear Chair Larson, I'm sad to share that I have to step down from my seat as the Ward 5 board member. I have just moved out of the ward as of today. It was not my intention to make this departure from my seat so quickly, but due to family matters, I had to relocate. It's been a pleasure serving the city, the residents of Ward 5, and its incredible board. Thank you for the opportunity. Sincerely, Gemma Soldati.
You. And again, with all resignations, they'll be posted for 2 weeks to solicit, hopefully, some applicants to fill the seat. If you're interested in the seat, reach out to our city clerk to help. We'll help you get an application filled out. Second communication this evening is regarding the resignation of Ward 2 School Board member Barbara Wentworth. City Clerk, will you please read the resignation?
Monday, December 2nd, 2024. Mayor Girding, this email is to inform you of my resignation from the Somersworth School Board. My last school board meeting will be December 10th, 2024. Thank you, Barbara Wentworth.
Thank you. And again, same thing. It'll be posted for 2 weeks for applicants to submit if they're interested in filling that seat. All right, brings us to item 9, which is presentations of petitions and disposal thereof by reference or otherwise. We have none. It will then bring us to agenda item 10, which is the mayor's report. First up, I would like to congratulate officially our city manager. Quite exciting, quite an exciting honor. I think it is well timed, well earned, and I really appreciate personally all the, mentorship you've done for me as both mayor and city councilor, and certainly appreciate all the time you've committed to this city. It's been an honor to work with you, and I know you've got a few more months to go, but can't believe we're already in December. So I fear June will be faster than it feels. But congratulations. Thank you. Yeah. Next, I want to make an official appointment for Councillor Barry to our city's, or as our city's representative to the Lamprey Regional Cooperative Committee. So thank you for stepping up. We had communicated about this, but I need to make an official one. So here's the official appointment. And next, I'd like to thank Somersworth Parade Committee members for what was an amazing parade this past Saturday. Special thank yous to Beth Poulin and Councillor Cameron. You guys were phenomenal. I know you put a lot of work in. And thank you to all the city staff for both the town of Berwick and city of Somersworth for the work that they put in to make it happen. It was a little chilly, but let me tell you, the sun was out. I warmed up from walking. I think we had probably the most floats that we've ever had. It was like, it was a really true community event. It's always nice to share time with Berwick and to get to see their folks that live over there. So again, thank you to everyone who walked in the parade, helped put it together, and came out to watch it, because it really was a great day. So thank you.
I will say that we started off in a full sprint. I think Chief Macklin leading the parade thought he was in a pursuit.
I
It
know,
started
what was
off
that?
hot.
Got my steps in and my workout, heart rate up. And then lastly, I'm very pleased to announce that the city of Somersworth was recently made aware that we are this year's recipient of the Seacoast Workforce Housing Coalition's Municipal Leadership Award. So again, this award will be presented to the city at their annual awards night and celebration event. This will be on Wednesday. And it is in recognition of a city, town, or municipal leader that has advanced housing issues over the last year. Somersworth is being recognized because of our recent focus on housing-related issues, including updates to our housing chapter, the work that the planning board has done with our master plan, the creation of the Mayor's Housing Task Force, and the work that they've done to kind of get the ball rolling on major changes related to housing, and then the city's readiness for zoning updates in partnership with Stratford Regional Planning Commission in order to accommodate housing in our community. Again, the ceremony will be held this Wednesday. It's December 11th, and so I'm really excited to be able to attend to accept this award on behalf of the city, though I am really sad to be missing both the Chamber's Gala and the Shop with a Cop that is happening both those that night. Oh my gosh, excuse me. So if you're not attending the ceremony, I highly recommend you attend the gala and the Shop with a Cop, because both of those will be really great events, and it'll be great to honor our city manager who received that award. But again, quite exciting that we received this award, and I think this is really just the beginning of the work that we are doing on housing, and I foresee a lot of great things for the city in the future, and hopefully many more awards related to the work we do on housing. So thank you. And essentially this concludes my mayor's report. Next on the agenda is item 11, which is reports of standing committees. First up, we have our Finance Committee, Chairman Witham.
Thank you. Finance Committee met last Thursday, December 5th at 5:30. We had a number of agenda items, but quite frankly, they're very similar and one dovetails into the next. and they were more updates than decisions. And I'll try to be as brief with this as I can be without being too confusing. So first item on our agenda was additional site investigation required at the fire station. I think as everybody knows that's been following our work here, during the initial phases of construction of the new fire station on Maple Street, the excavation contractor discovered through testing that the soil that was being removed from the site contained PFAS. And I'm not going to try to pronounce what that is, but it's a forever chemical that is only now in the beginning stages of being regulated by the EPA and DES. And what those regulations will ultimately mean in terms of protections and what we need to do is not at all clear. But what we do need to know is what we have for concentrations on the site. So the state continues to require us to do additional testing at the fire station. I believe right now there are 4 monitoring wells. Whether or not we need to add additional monitoring wells remains some question, but we think we're probably heading in the direction of adding additional monitoring wells. So very early stages, nothing concrete, but probably more to come there, which means added cost for our various hazardous mitigations that we have ongoing throughout the city. With an old industrial city, we have these issues. Related, at the time during construction, the city, with the approval of New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, took the soil from the fire station site because it had to be moved and was moved to an adjacent site, the city's gravel pit off of Maple Street, just sort of almost if you could throw a baseball that far. It was stockpiled there. It's been covered in plastic and protected. DPW staff has to routinely look at the plastic. If we have a heavy wind day like we had last week, it sometimes blows off and they have to readjust it and all of that. Well, the EPA and DES are now requiring us to take samples from the soil pile. Exactly how many, we're not sure. More than 2, less than 100 samples from the soil pile and have those tested so we can determine the concentrations in the soil pile. So there's an added cost associated with that. We're in a bit of a discussion with the EPA right now where they want the soil pile to be considered part of the Superfund site. And our environmental attorney is pushing back saying it didn't come from the Superfund site, it's not on the Superfund site. Both were next to the Superfund site, but not on it. So we're pushing back against that EPA sort of a request. So far, so good, but more to come on that. It's just this ongoing moving target. Nonetheless, we do need to do soil sampling from the soil pile. So our environmental attorneys are on board monitoring all of this, working with city staff. Aris Engineering is on board to do a lot of this testing or additional testing along the way. So the soil pile itself, again, it is covered. We were initially under indication from both EPA and DES that they wanted us to enhance the protective covering over the soil pile. So we went into this meeting thinking we were going to need to move forward with a supplemental appropriation to purchase more substantial plastic, if you will, have it installed by a firm, and the estimates were somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 to put a cover over the pile. I might liken it very similar to what you see over the salt piles down in Portsmouth. It would look sort of like that. Late breaking news as of the committee last week, they don't want us to cover the pile now. So again, cover the pile, don't cover the pile, we're not sure. It's very much a moving target because we're dealing with a lot of unknowns here. Fact of the matter is, kind of hard for us to cover the pile and to test the pile. Those two things conflict with one another. So at least for the time being, we don't have to do any additional covering over the pile, but I'm not saying that's forever. We might be back next month to tell you that we have to cover the pile. So more to come on that. Unrelated to fire station PFAS in the pile, back to the Superfund site. The EPA has a new administrator of our project site and was indicating they wanted us to do some additional testing of the wetlands that we already test a lot around, there are many, many test pits around the site. They wanted us to add some way out in the wetlands. City staff and our environmental consultants both pushed back saying, how do we do this safely? It's water that's deep, you can't stand in it, you can't put a boat in it because it's swampy, and we basically said, we don't know of a good way to do this safely. Can you advise us how to do it? And the EPA has since said, you don't need to do that. So it's constant moving of the goalpost, I'd characterize this as. It's been very difficult. All of it is expensive and is a lot of time and effort by city staff. It consumes a fair amount of time. There are legal fees and our environmental attorney, so it's costly, and again, we're not sure exactly where we're going. So that's the update I can provide to you there. There are some additional costs involved in all of this testing, and I don't need to get into those details. We're sort of required to do all of that. If you want more details, we can certainly, at a future meeting, if council desired, I suppose, get our environmental attorney here, but I'm not sure he could tell you much more than I'm telling you right now, because there's more uncertainty than there is certainty, so I think we just have to continue to monitor and stay updated. Under miscellaneous, our other agenda item, we made an appropriation for up to $20,000 to replace 2 public safety radio antennas up at Hilltop School. I think as council knows, Hilltop School contains our radio repeater system, basically amplifies the radio communications across the city because of its elevation. We have an agreement with Chinburg Property to have that equipment at the Hilltop School. Council authorized upgrade of much of that radio equipment some time ago up there, and the radio technicians in the installation of that upgraded equipment identified a faulty antenna. And the other antenna is the same age and is at a state of almost failure. It's important, it's public safety, so it's within the spending authority of the Finance Committee, so we authorized up to $20,000 to replace these 2 antennas. We think it's not going to cost near that, probably about half of that, some $10,000 or $11,000 to replace those 2 antennas. So that work will be taking place sometime soon. That'll likely get paid for out of city contingency, which exists for emergency purposes, which is what this is. That'll conclude the report of the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much. Next up is Government Operations Committee, Chairman Mishu.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Government Arts meeting met on November 13th at 4:30 here in the Executive Conference Room. First on our agenda was to approve the minutes of the meeting that was held previously on September 11th. Second on our agenda was a petition to extend and improve public meeting notice and requirements. That was a very long and lengthy meeting, discussion. So basically, the petition is asking for more of a notice time for upcoming meetings and to include agendas, and also to alternate ways to reach out to the community, text messaging, emails, and alerts. That's something that the residents could possibly sign up for if they do choose to have that. But after this long discussion, the committee decided to forward it back to the city council for a general discussion for all of us to go through, because we couldn't really come up to a general consensus what we wanted, so we wanted input from everybody. And third on the agenda is City Council Rules, Section 7D, Re-election Campaign Comments. That's basically was asking city councilors and the mayor who's sitting here, when we give statements, not to include, well, only thing we're allowed to do is say either we're going to run for re-election or we're not going to run for re-election, but basically that's it. But that's it. So after a few things, incidents before, we come up with a new one. It's going to be Resolution 2725 this evening for a first read, and basically it's to refrain from making any comments directly related to any political campaigns while sitting in the role of the mayor or city councilor. We will be able to do that, but we have to recuse ourselves here, sitting here. Then we can go and either in the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, when the general public is allowed to speak. And then we will go down to the podium and we will speak, but we will be speaking as a regular citizen of the city of Somersworth, not as a mayor or sitting councilor. So that will be up for discussion, or actually for our first read, like I said, for Resolution 2025. And there was no miscellaneous items after that, so we adjourned at 5:36.
Thank you so much. Next is Economic Development Committee, Chairman Goodwin.
No report.
Thank you. Next is Public Safety Committee, Chairman Peppin.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Next is Public Works and the Environment Committee, Chairman Witham.
Thank you. Again, Public Works and Environment did meet last Thursday, December 5th at 4:30, just prior to the Finance meeting. The good news for these minutes, all the stuff I talked about the PFAS and the landfill and all of that is the same, and that consumed a fair amount of the meeting. One of our other agenda items was an extension of water line on Route 108. You may have read in the paper or seen in the planning board minutes that a new pickleball facility was approved on Route 108, sort of up towards the Dover line. Currently, the water line stops short of where they're going to be building the pickleball facility by some 400 to 500 feet. The developer of the pickleball facility has agreed to extend the water line for their benefit, for both drinking water and for fire protection. Currently, the water line on Route 108 in that section is 16 inches in diameter. In order to, our third-party engineering firm, Wright Pierce, suggested that the drop down in water line for that extension should be no smaller than 12 inches. That would also allow anybody else in that 400 to 500 foot stretch to tie into that water line if they should choose. The pickleball facility developer is okay with that. They are working through the various permitting processes to run the water line along Route 108 and then across to their facility. As far as the Public Works and Environment Committee was, we were fine with this request. It benefits the community as a whole and benefits a business coming into the community at no cost to the city. So that made sense to us. And there's a resolution that will be coming forward with regard to that at our next meeting. We had a number of project updates from our Public Works Director. Comment on a few of them. There were several that we discussed. If you've noticed, the signal upgrades at the High Street, Blackwater Road, Indigo Hill Road intersection have been completed. Initial reports are that traffic flow through that intersection is much better, much improved. They will continue to monitor that and make any fine-tuning adjustments to traffic flow and patterns, but it alleviates that head-on collision potential that you had with straight ahead and left turns all happening at the same time. So that work has largely been completed. Again, we're in a monitoring phase there. Constitutional Way is pretty much buttoned up for winter. What you see there is what you get. Grenice Contracting will be back in the spring for the finish coat of pavement, pavement line striping, the installation of the pedestrian scale light poles, similar to what we have out in front of City Hall, trash barrels, benches, and all of those things, as well as completing any punch list items such as hydroseeding for the grass in the disturbed areas. So we appreciate residents bearing with us as we migrate through the winter months in what is an incomplete situation. But again, not all of it is unanticipated. I think we recognize that we were going to at least have just base coat of asphalt down. It allows things to settle, so they'll be back first thing in the spring once weather conditions allow. Another item that we talked about was our discharge permit at the wastewater treatment facility. This actually fell under miscellaneous. We are at a point where we need to re-up our discharge permit with New Hampshire DES. That was due in January. We've asked for an extension until March. We believe we'll be granted that extension, and the Public Works and the Environment Committee agrees with city staff that we should engage Wright Pierce Engineers to help us with that evaluation of that permit. The permit goes hand in hand with what we're doing in terms of our upgrades there, both what we've completed so far and what we anticipate doing in the phase 2 of the upgrades at the wastewater treatment plant. It would not make any sense to have a discharge permit that we can't meet with the upgrades. So we need to make sure that the two things align, for lack of a better way to describe it. So there will be a cost associated with that, and there'll be a resolution coming to council. No resolution? Or was it within our authority and we approved it? 12,000. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for the update on that. And that'll conclude my report.
All right, thank you very much. Lastly, we have Recreation Committee Chairwoman Cameron.
Nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. All right, brings us to item 12 on our agenda, which is reports of special committees. Are there any reports this evening of special committees? Yes, Councilor Witham.
Yes, thank you. The Mayor's Committee on Somersworth High School Athletic Facilities will be having its kickoff meeting this Thursday here in Council Chambers at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. Other special committees? Your question? Sure. Make sure your mic's on if it's not.
The permit we're going for the wastewater treatment plant, will that be future oriented, or is it just enough to get by for now?
City Manager.
It's actually with the EPA, and it's a draft permit. That's why we have a comment period that ends January 13th. We're asking it to be extended. And it'll be for a number of years. I forget if it's 10 or 20. It's not just for a year.
Yeah.
Questions?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, special
Thank
committee
you.
or question?
Special committee.
All right, go for it.
So the Somersworth Historic Special Committee from the mayor with City Council did meet. We had a lengthy conversation, and we had decided to reach out to our state agency, the State Historic Preservation Office. I have made contact with them. I will be meeting with them prior to let them know what the conversation was about so they can prepare, but they are planning to attend our meeting in January. I believe it was the 14th. That's what I was trying to look up real fast. The 14th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Great update. Love that. All right, other special committee updates? All right, seeing none, I will turn it over to the city manager to deliver his manager's report.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor, members of council, members of the public. I offer the following comments that were included in the meeting packet under city manager's report and attachments. Under unfinished business, I just point out the city council meeting schedule. I apologize, but we had a clerical error regarding the November council meeting in the first go-around. It was noted Tuesday, November 10th. November 10th, we can meet, is actually a Monday, so my apologies. And as a clerical error, we just made that change for tonight's reading. Resolution 1825, again, supports funding for Coast. And there is approximately, it's more than the 86,700 that was in the report. It's probably up another 5,000 or 6,000 or so by now. So it can withstand this this funding should council approve it. So we do have the adequate funding in our municipal and transportation fund. And for those who don't recall what that is, we're allowed under state law. It's a local decision to have a $5 surcharge when you register your vehicles at City Hall. And that $5 goes towards this dedicated fund for transportation issues, whether they're road improvements, sidewalks, or something like Coast regarding public transportation. I provided you attachments on several of these other action items that are either in the second reading or first reading. We again regurgitated on the resolution 1925 the memorandum that was provided by the Public Works Director regarding the sidewalk project that you'll be looking to vote on this evening. Again, resolution 2025, we regurgitated, if you will, or copied you again on the memo that City Engineer Amber Hall provided regarding cost estimates for resurfacing of these roads that are under your consideration this evening. And under resolution 2125 for second reading, again, attachments were provided by Public Works Director and our city engineer. And we sent those along to you so that you'd have those handy and not have to backtrack for them. Resolution 2225 to authorize the manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Library and to accept the Moose Plate Grant Award for vital record preservation. We've done one of these in the recent past, so I did provide you notification from the State Library grant program that the city is being awarded a little over $9,800. This exhibit would states microfilming and digitizing 3 volumes. We had to correct that with the state's okay, that it's only going to cover 2 volumes, just so you know it's not a error again. It's actually we needed to correct it. And they want us, anytime we talk about this project, or at least in the first instance, they want me to state that this preservation project has been made possible through funds received from the sale of the New Hampshire Moose Conservation License Plate Program and administered by the State Library, a division of the New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. They just want to push that information apparently out to the public and make sure our elected officials are aware of that program and support it. I do want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Kristen and Amy in the city clerk's office for pursuing this ongoing restoration project of vital records. You'll see more as time progresses and we're allowed to keep applying and playing some catch-up work for this very worthwhile program of preserving our historical vital records. Under 2325, again, authorizing the manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. They need to kind of cut the titles down a little bit, I think. To hold the National Alliance of Preservation Commission's Assistance and Mentoring Program in Somersworth. And the next resolution, 2425, authorizes the manager to enter into a grant agreement with this organization to create a historical cultural resources master plan chapter. So I did provide you, and thank you, Michelle, Director of Planning and Community Development. She provided memorandums that gave a quick outline of these 2 projects. I also gave you some grant information on these action items. And the 2325 is in regards to holding informational workshops with the public in through the HDC, so another worthwhile program. 2525, again, authorize the manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts for a Community Engagement Grant for fiscal year 25 for a Little League mural project. This came out of Nancy Cameron's committee, I think, or at least one she's on. And thank you to the committee in seeking this out. And I gave you some information regarding the letter awarding us this project funding. And it'll be in regards, as the resolution states, the Little League baseball field that's on Maple Street. And we're going to go after the full $18,000 project number, and we'll grab some of the money that we needed that we didn't get from the state, $1,600. We got $6,400 from the state, and $1,600 we'll fund under the city's budget. The resolution declaring January Diversity Month in the city respectfully suggests the council may want to consider waiving rules and passing it this evening. This is something that has been codified in the city's ordinances and administrative code. And of course, January 1st will start before we have a council meeting. And again, the chairman of the Government Ops Committee reported out regarding the amendment to the Council Rules and Regulations, Section 7, regarding political campaign comments being made by seated mayor and councilors. And then you have the other discussion regarding the petition for public meeting notice requirements. And I just point out, hopefully you had a chance to, I gave you a copy of the Government Operations Committee meetings, since there were 2 action items, and this, or at least one first reading, and this action item to discuss what the committee discussed at their meeting. CIP fiscal year 2026 to 2031. In accordance with the city charter, I hereby submit my proposed CIP for city council consideration. I look forward to the council's direction for future review and discussion opportunities. Brenda, my executive assistant, placed it in your Google Drive, and we also provided you a hard copy, which is in your City Hall mailboxes. fiscal year 25-26 budget preparation. I provided you a memo that directed the city council, the city department heads to begin their preliminary budget requests for the next fiscal year. And as always, I welcome any specific comments from city councilors and the mayor regarding what might be included in the budget. And the mayor generally looks at his portion of the budget and offers any amendments.
$1 million of travel.
There you go. Library renovation expansion. I know the mayor had asked me recently where we stood with phase 2 schedule regarding looking at ADA renovations and expansion of the public library here in our city. And I provide you a copy of that timeline. We continue to meet with the architects and the committee. I may have mentioned it before. I apologize if I haven't. It's our library director, if you will, our city engineer, Scott Smith, our deputy manager, finance director, and myself have been meeting with the architects over an extended period of time. And well, I'll save that for last. I will mention the tax rate. We did officially get notification of the tax rate. We got unofficial notification late last week, and it became official today. So some people call looking for their tax bills, believe it or not. Of course, they want to get it into the tax system when they file their federal taxes. So they set our rate. We're not allowed to do it on our own. The State Department of Revenue Administration has to do that. So we're always on their beck and call, and when they get it done, it's never quick enough for our satisfaction, but they get it done eventually. So we did, our current tax rate is $29.30. It's going down to $18.70. It's a little higher than what we projected earlier in the year when we shared it with you, and that was because there's an increase in the county tax apportionment. So we will be getting bills out this week. So that's a decrease of $10.60 from this year's tax rate. So although the values, again, I want to belabor the point, although the values of properties went up, the tax rate went down, so that'll help equalize people's bills, at least for some people. And I'm sorry to have to report, I try to talk them out of it, quite frankly. Police Chief Tim Macklin has provided me with his notice of retirement effective March 21st, 2025. He has served our community as a police officer for some 33 years, and I'm sure you will share our collective congratulations, well wishes, and appreciation for his dedicated service to the city. I, along with our entire city management team, as well as city staff, both at the police department and across all thresholds of our city departments, will miss his participation and support as we've all truly enjoyed working with him. So congratulations, Tim. You're getting out the door before me. And that concludes my comments, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations, Chief Macklin. It's quite exciting news, though I am sad to see you go. Congrats.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Question for the city manager. We still use microfilm?
City manager? Yeah, I guess that's
Okay,
it.
I'm just surprised that, I'm just surprised.
Very cool. That sounds like a weird state law. All right. That brings us to agenda item 13, which is nominations, appointments, and elections. Under nominations, appointments, and elections, in accordance with Council Rule 17 appointments, the following nominees are being brought up for a vote by council this evening. Bonnie McNair for appointment as a member of the Planning Board for a term of 3 years. What are the wishes of the council? Councilor Parity Catanzaro?
I would like to enthusiastically vote to, or make the motion to approve Ms. McNair.
All right. Councilor Parity Catanzaro, motions to accept the nominee, seconded
I
by
vote aye.
Councilor Cameron. You're good. The motion before the council is to accept Bonnie McNair as a member of the Planning Board. Discussion?
Yes.
All right. Seeing no discussion, if you are in favor of the nominee, you will state by saying yes. If you are opposed, you will state by saying no. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I said that wrong. Aye. All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The nominee is accepted. Congratulations. Also, under nominations, appointments, and elections, in accordance with Council Rules 17 appointments, the following are being nominated tonight. Howard Merrick for appointment as an alternate member of the Historic District Commission for a term of 3 years. Appointee will stand in nomination until our next regularly scheduled council meeting. All right, brings us to item 14, which is items that have been laid upon the table. We have none. Brings us to item 15, which is unfinished business. First up, we have our ordinances. Chair will recognize the clerk for a second reading on ordinance 12-25, which is a supplemental appropriation to provide funding to Cooperative Alliance for Seacoast Transportation, also known as COAST, which if approved would appropriate $70,783 from the new Municipal Transportation Fund to the Community Service section of the budget, which would fully fund COAST's local support request. City Clerk.
Ordinance number 1225, supplemental appropriation to provide funding to Cooperative Alliance for Seacoast Transportation, COAST.
Ordinance 12-25, having been read a first and second time, is now open to further amendments. Seeing no amendments, I'll look for a motion on ordinance 12-25. Councilor Witham.
Yes, I move for its adoption.
Councilor Witham moves for the adoption of ordinance 12-25, seconded by Councilor Goodwin. Motion on before the council is on the adoption of ordinance 12-25. Discussion. Councilor Witham.
Yes, thank you. I know Rad Nichols from Coast is here, and I do have a question for him if it's within order.
Yeah, without objection. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. You can come on up.
Mike, can you get him the microphone, please?
Oh, yeah, we do have the... Thank you, thank you.
Well, Rad makes his way to the podium. My question is to set up another question for the city manager, but I want to get his feedback, which I believe we talked about at least a little bit at committee. Thank you, Rad. If we meet this request this year, obviously now, as the manager just reported, we'll begin building our budget for next year. We'll request that budget number from Coast. Can you talk about the trajectory? I know at committee we talked about various funding sources that evaporated, and there were some sharp increases in recent years, but that you didn't think they would be as sharp in the coming years. And can you just talk about that trajectory of funding request?
Correct. So this year we asked for overall increase from our municipalities of just under 25%. That amount varies by community based on our municipal funding formula. Next year, we're probably somewhere in the 12 to 13% rate at this point.
And again, that's because we're catching up from some other funding sources, federal funding sources that basically evaporated.
Yes.
Got it. Very good. So and I plan to support this evening, but so we don't get back into the same supplemental appropriation next year when it comes time for us to review the budget, it would make sense to meet the Coast funding request in the first instance, not an after the fact instance. However, that's going to be this edition plus whatever is coming next year. So, do the math. We're probably talking about in our budget, that's like $100,000 increase just for this line of the budget. Is that accurate, Mr. Manager? And is that how you would plan to budget it, or how would you go about budgeting that line?
Well, historically, the city council has taken the prerogative to entertain any increases in the civic programs that have been approved in the past, to roll in that same number and to discuss any new requests. And I have never been asked to make a recommendation. What I've been directed to do, so to speak, is just plug in the number that was approved previously. So without further direction from council, I would not put in the extra 10 to 15%. I think you said 10% or 13 or something, didn't you? Yeah.
12 to 13.
Yeah.
But it would include this supplemental
It
appropriation.
would include the
Okay,
supplemental.
That was my question, I guess. in a
My
roundabout
perspective,
way.
that would be it.
Okay, very good. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Nichols? Yes, Councilor Gibson.
Hi, thank you for coming. Just so the public is aware, what is the level of service as far as ridership and so forth to Somersworth?
'Somersworth you had, last year, system-wide, on our fixed route system, we saw just over a 30% increase. In Somersworth, we carried ballpark 57,000 passengers. Our system as a whole was 349,000.
Okay, and the scheduled or special needs?
Sorry, that did include that number.
Oh.
Last year, that number was just under 3,000, 2,998.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Executive Director Nichols? Seeing none, thank you for coming up and being willing to answer our questions. I appreciate it. Other discussion before we move forward with our vote? Yes, Councillor Witham.
Yeah, just as the justification for this rather substantial supplemental appropriation, we have traditionally struggled during our budget process to fund not only Coast, but many other very valuable things in our community. I think what strikes me here and what supports my support of the supplemental appropriation is the numbers that Rad just talked about. We have very high ridership in this community. We have a number of residents, it is their only means of transportation. And thank you, Councilor Gibson, for the question about riders with special needs. Our number is higher than some other communities, and that has a significant added cost as we need to send dedicated units within a certain distance of the dedicated routes. So we have a fair number of riders, and we have a fair number of riders with special needs, and those costs are higher. So I get it.
Yeah, thank you. Other discussion? Seeing none, if you are in favor of the adoption of ordinance 12-25, you will state by saying yes. If you are not, you will state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Right, ordinance 12-25 has been adopted. Brings us to ordinance 13-24. The chair will recognize the clerk for a second reading on ordinance 13-24, which is our city council meeting schedule for 2025. City clerk.
Ordinance number 1325. City Council meeting schedule for 2025.
Thank you. Ordinance 13-25, 25, sorry, I was saying 24, I think, right? 25 has been read a first and second time, is now open to further amendment. Amendment, no? All right, amendment, no. No amendment being offered, I'll look for a motion on ordinance 13-25. Councilor Gibson.
I move that we adopt the meeting schedule as presented.
All right, Councilor Gibson moves for the adoption of ordinance 13-25, seconded by Councilor Pepin. Motion for the council is on the adoption of ordinance 13-25. Discussion? Seeing none, if you are in favor of the adoption of ordinance 13-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you are not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 13-25 has been adopted. You guys, you could just not adopted it and we wouldn't have had to meet at all. You could just got yourselves locked into a bunch of meetings. What are you doing?
Oh, can I take back my vote?
No, right. All right, brings us to our resolutions. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on resolution 18-25 to authorize the city to use funding from the Municipal and Transportation Fund as local support for a cooperative alliance for Seacoast Transportation, also known as COAST, which if approved would allow the use of the funds for this operational cost. City Clerk, will you please call the roll? Or, the roll, oh my God, do our second reading.
Resolution number 1825, to authorize the city to use funding from the Municipal and Transportation Fund as local support for Cooperative Alliance for Seacoast Transportation Coast.
Thank you. For those at home, I had a migraine earlier that I am getting over, so my brain is all mush still. All right, that resolution 18-25 has been read a first and now second time and is open to further amendments. Right, seeing no amendments, I will look for a motion on Resolution 18-25. Counselor Witham?
Move for its adoption.
Counselor Witham moves to the adoption of Resolution 18-25, seconded by Counselor Pepin. Motion for council is on the adoption of Resolution 18-25. Discussion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the adoption of Resolution 18-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you're not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 18-25 has been adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 19-25, which is a vote to repurpose funds available from the bond issued for the Cemetery Road Complete Streets project for the High Street Sidewalk Reconstruction Project, which, if approved, would utilize $236,332 of unutilized funds from the Cemetery Road project and put it towards the High Street project. City Clerk.
Resolution number 1925. Vote to repurpose funds available from the bond issued for the Cemetery Road Complete Streets project for the High Street Sidewalk Reconstruction Project.
Thank you. Resolution 19-25, having been read a first and second time, is now open to further amendment. No amendment being offered. I'll look for a motion on Resolution 19-25. Councilor Gibson.
I move that we accept it as proposed.
Great, thank you. Councilor Gibson moves for the adoption of Resolution 19-25, seconded by Councilor Pepin. Motion for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 19-25. Discussion. Councilor Witham.
Just as a point of information, the bids for that sidewalk are due back by mid-month, I think December 13th. We do anticipate the cost of this project to be somewhere around the $1 million mark, so this at least gets us partway there.
Perfect. Thank you. Other discussion? All right, seeing none. If you're in favor of the adoption of Resolution 19-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you're not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 19-25 has been adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 20-25, which is to authorize the city manager to prepare bid specifications for the road resurfacing and associated repairs of selected streets, which, if approved, would allow bids to be prepared for road resurfacing and maintenance on High Street, Woodchuck Lane, and Granite Way. City Clerk.
Resolution number 2025, to authorize the city manager to prepare bid specifications for road resurfacing and associated repairs on selected streets.
Thank you. Resolution 20-25, having been read first and second time, is now open to further amendment. No amendment being offered. I'll look for a motion on Resolution 20-25. Councilor Witham.
Move for its adoption.
Councilor Witham moves for the adoption of Resolution 20-25, seconded by Councilor Cameron. Motion for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 20-25. Discussion. Right, seeing none. If you're in favor of the adoption of Resolution 20-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you're not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 20-25 has been adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 21-25. City Council vote to authorize a bond to reconstruct Willand Drive and Flynn Street, which, if approved, would authorize a bond not to exceed $1,260,000 for the reconstruction of these streets. City Clerk.
Resolution number 2125, City Council vote to authorize a bond to reconstruct Willand Drive and Flynn Street.
Thank you. Resolution 21-25, having been read a first and second time, is now open to further amendment. No amendment being offered. I'll look for a motion on Resolution 21-25. Councilor Witham.
Move for its adoption.
Councilor Witham moves for the adoption of Resolution 21-25, seconded by Councilor Michaud. Motion for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 21-25. Discussion. Yes, Councilor Gibson.
Just basically informational more than anything else. In the, I know the design work has not been done yet, so is this going to include sidewalks? And secondly, Willand Drive, does it end at commercial or does it extend beyond that?
Great questions. I'll turn it over to the city manager.
No sidewalk work is included. And Willand Drive, there's an unmaintained cul-de-sac with no buildings on it, sort of a, construction yard being utilized up in that area right now, but it would go, excuse me, apologize. We do maintain up and beyond, because I think the warming center is actually a little bit beyond Commercial Street, so I think that's the extent of what we plow right now. It's just up there and then we end it. So there's no maintenance beyond the warming center. So it just goes a little bit further. And actually, there's another business that's going to go across the street from the warming center. The fence company that's on 108 is supposed to relocate there. There's been a little delay in them getting over there, but that's where we're at now with that particular road.
So down to the cul-de-sac is actually part of Willand, or?
That would be my understanding. No, it's not, okay? I have some staff saying no. So I guess council will have to take action if we haven't formally accepted the deed for that. Since it hasn't been developed, we'll have to come back to council when and if that gets developed beyond the warming center and
Okay,
get a deed
well,
and so forth.
which brings me to, if we're reconstructing it, should this be something that we take up prior to that?
That would be up to the council, but there's no, it's not actively being used, other than that construction yard, which, quite frankly, I'm not sure how often that is used. I'd have to talk to staff about that and get back to you.
Councilor Gibson, you're still recognized.
If we were to take possession of it, would the developer who owns the land around it, would they be obligated to bring it up to city standards?
That would be something that the planning board would work with should a site development plan come in, and there would be some cost incurred for off-site improvements, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Witham.
Thank you. Yeah, just to be a little more clear on these two projects, these are not complete street projects like Constitutional Way. These are just more aggressive amendments to the paving surface. So no sidewalks, no pipe, no curbing, or any of that. It is just a more enhanced roadbed work where we'll be digging out some of the inappropriate soils, amending the soils, hence why the added cost, and hence why it's not just part of our paving program, because it's just a more expensive repair. Part of that, Willand Drive, is not yet accepted by the city. We do typically, when we accept a street, we make sure that it meets city standards. And even if it is part of the city right-of-way currently, I think if you drive out there, you recognize that that section beyond Commercial Drive that goes up to the cul-de-sac is not in bad shape. It's really from Commercial Drive to Route 108 that is in significant disrepair. So this is kind of what we vetted out at Public Works and the Environment as the appropriate approach for these roads. If we were to do a complete streets with sidewalks and all of that, I don't know, thumb in the wind guess, $5 million, $6 million. I think that's reasonable to expect, and that's not what we're looking at here.
Thank you. Other discussion? Right. Seeing none, if you're in favor of the adoption of Resolution 21-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you are not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Peppin.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Resolution 21-25 has been adopted. Brings us to agenda item 16, which is our new business. First up, we have resolutions.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to suspend council rules for items A through E under the resolutions as listed in the agenda, that they be authorized to be read a second time by title only for action tonight.
All right. The motion before council is to suspend rules to read under item 16, A through E, as a second time this evening. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Barry. I think I saw the hand. So again, motion for our council is suspension of council rules for second reading on items A through E. Discussion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying no. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. We will suspend rules to allow for a second reading on those items. Thank you. All right, get my list together. I make sure I remember. All right. So brings us to Resolution 22-25, which is to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Library and to accept a Moose Plate Grant Award for Vital Record Preservation. City Clerk, will you do a first and second reading, please?
Resolution number 2225, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Library and to accept a Moose Plate Grant Award for Vital Record Preservation. December 9th, 2024. Whereas the city of Somersworth values its history and understands the importance of preserving and maintaining the city's records. And whereas the city of Somersworth applied for a Moose Plate Grant through the New Hampshire State Library to preserve and protect the city's historical vital records. And whereas the city of Somersworth has received notification of a Moose Plate Grant Award in the amount of $9,843 to conduct preservation, treatment, microfilm, and digitally scan 2 volumes of marriage and death records for the years 1940 to 1943. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to execute any documents and agreements necessary for the grant's acceptance and execution, and take any and all other such actions relative to this grant's project's completion determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Mayor Matt Girding, Councilors Nancy Cameron, David A. Witham, Crystal Parity Catanzaro, approved city attorney.
You would do a second reading, please?
Resolution number 2225, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Library and to accept a Moose Plate Grant Award for Vital Record Preservation.
All right, Resolution 22-25 having been read a first and now second time is open to further amendment. Seeing no amendment, the chair will look for a motion on ordinance 22-25. Councilor Goodwin.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 22-25.
Councilor Goodwin moves for the adoption of Resolution 22-25, seconded by Councilor Parity Catanzaro. Motion for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 22-25. Discussion. Councilor Berry.
I believe it was brought up a little bit earlier about microfilm, and I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. So I understand the importance of making these more digital, but this does not negate the archival standards we must maintain for these type of records. Is that correct?
Question. City manager, who I assume will refer to the city clerk.
Well, I think I can recognize a yes shake, yeah.
So
That's
yes.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? All right, seeing none. If you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 22-25, you will state by saying yes. If you are not, you will state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 22-25 has been adopted. Brings us to Resolution 23-25, which is to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to hold a National Alliance of Preservation Commission assistance. Oh my gosh, sorry, tongue twisters, and mentoring program event in Somersworth. City Clerk, will you please do a first and second reading?
Resolution number 2325, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to hold a National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, Commission Assistance and Mentoring Program event in Somersworth. December 9th, 2024. Whereas the Department of Planning and Community Development has applied for a grant to hold a National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, Commission Assistance and Mentoring Program event in the city of Somersworth. And whereas the city has received notification that it has been awarded a grant from the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And whereas the grant shall be on a reimbursable basis for an amount not to exceed $7,000 with no city match required. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to hold a National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, Commission Assistance, and mentoring program event for an amount not to exceed $7,000 and take any and all other such actions relative to this grant's execution determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Mayor Matt Girding, Councilors Nancy Cameron, David A. Witham, Crystal Parody Catanzaro, Laura Berry. Approved City Attorney.
All right, we'll do a second reading, please.
Resolution number 2325, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, to hold a National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, Commission Assistance and Mentoring Program event in Somersworth.
Thank you. Resolution 23-25, having been read a first and now second time, is open to further amendment. All right, seeing no amendment, Chair will look for a motion on resolutions 23-25. Councilor Berry.
Motion to accept as presented.
All right, Councilor Berry moves to accept resolution 23-25, seconded by Councilor Goodwin. Motion for the council is on the adoption of resolution 23-25. Discussion. Councilor Parody Catanzaro.
I just want to applaud the city clerk for reading that like 4 times without stumbling. Just very impressive.
I couldn't even read it once. Other discussion? All right, seeing none, if you are in favor of the adoption of resolution 23-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you are not, you'll state by saying no. City clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Berry?
Yes.
Pepin?
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Parody Catanzaro?
Yes.
Michaud?
Yes.
Witham?
Yes.
Goodwin?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Resolution 23-25 has been accepted. Brings us to resolution 24-25, which is to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to create a historical and cultural resource master plan chapter. City clerk, could you please read a first and second reading?
Resolution number 2425, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to create a historical and cultural resources master plan chapter, December 9th, 2024. Whereas the Department of Planning and Community Development has applied for a grant to create a historical resources master plan chapter. And whereas the city received notification that it has been awarded a grant from the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And whereas the grant shall be on a reimbursable basis for an amount not to exceed $20,000 with no city match required. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to create a historical resource master plan chapter for an amount not to exceed $20,000 and take any and all other such actions relative to this grant's execution determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Mayor Matt Girding, Councilors Nancy Cameron, David A. Witham, Crystal Parody Catanzaro, and Laura Berry. Approved City Attorney.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind doing a second reading?
Resolution number 2425, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to create a historical and cultural resources master plan chapter.
Thank you. Resolution 24-25, having been read a first and now second time, is open to further amendment. Yes, Councilor Parody Catanzaro.
Just a friendly amendment that the word is in the second whereas should be it. So it should read, whereas the city received notification that it has been awarded. I think that's just a typo.
I think that's a little clerical change. We can definitely make that without having to stress too much. Thank you for the catch, though. That was good. Other amendments? All right, seeing none, looking for a resolution, or excuse me, a motion on resolution 24-25. Councilor Goodwin?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 24-25
Thank
as
you.
stated.
Yep, Councilor Goodwin moves to adopt resolution 24-25, seconded by Councilor Berry. A motion for the council is on the adoption of resolution 24-25. Discussion? All right, seeing none. If you're in favor of the adoption of resolution 24-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you're not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Goodwin?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Berry?
Yes.
Pepin?
Yeah.
Gibson?
Yes.
Parody Catanzaro?
Yes.
Michaud?
Yes.
Witham?
Yes.
All right, resolution 24-25 has been adopted. Brings us to Resolution 25-25 to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts for a community engagement grant for fiscal year 2025 for a Little League mural project. City Clerk, will you please do a first and second reading?
Resolution number 2525, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts for a community engagement grant for fiscal year 2025 for a Little League mural project, December 9th, 2024. Whereas the Department of Planning and Community Development has applied for a grant to create a mural at the Somersworth Little League field, and whereas the city has received notification that it has been awarded a grant from the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts, and whereas the grant shall be on a reimbursable basis for an amount not to exceed $6,400, with the city providing a match in the amount of $1,600 for a total project cost of $8,000. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts and to execute any documents and agreements necessary for the grant's execution and take any and all other such actions relative to this grant's execution determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Mayor Matt Girding, Councilors Nancy Cameron, David A. Witham, Crystal Parity, Catanzaro, approved city attorney.
Thank you. And if you could do a second reading, please.
Resolution number 2525, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts for a community engagement grant for fiscal year 2025 for a Little League mural project.
Thank you. Resolution 2525 has been read a first and now second time. Is there any amendment? Seeing no amendments, the chair will look for a motion on Resolution 25-25. Councilor Cameron? All right, Councilor Cameron moves for the adoption of Resolution 25-25, seconded by Councilor Goodwin. Motion before the council is on the adoption of Resolution 25-25. Discussion, Councilor Witham?
Do we know where said mural will be?
Councilor Cameron knows the answer.
I can answer that for you. Yes, it's going to be down at the Little League field, and it's going to be on the dugout that faces Maple Street. And can I just add that it was the mayor that brought this to the Arts and Culture Committee, almost a year ago,
Yeah,
maybe. It was quite a
probably
while
January
ago.
or February, yeah.
And it was a lot of legwork behind this and seeking out muralists and what our kind of vision was going to be for down there. So thank you to my fellow councilors who were on that committee with me. But I'm very excited about this one, so thank you.
As am I. Thank you. Councilor Witham.
Thank you. Obviously, being an avid supporter of Little League Baseball here in the community over the years, I support this project. I think it's a great place. It'll get lots of public view. I do hope it encourages the Little League volunteers to maybe spend a little bit of extra time keeping their property tidy. It is not the neatest piece of property. And there's also going to need to be some, I don't know, for lack of a better word, education, because that dugout is used to play ball off of, so the mural would get beat up if they're not mindful of that. Thank you.
Great insight. Thank you. Other discussion? All right. Seeing none, if you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 25-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you are not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Cameron?
Oh, yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Pepin?
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Parity, Catanzaro?
Yes.
Michaud?
Yes.
Witham.
With a scotia of hesitation, yes.
Goodwin?
Yes.
All right. Resolution 25-25 has been adopted. All right. Brings us to Resolution 26-25, proclamation declaring January Diversity Month in the city of Somersworth. City Clerk, will you please do a first and second reading for Resolution 26-25?
Resolution number 2625, proclamation declaring January Diversity Month in the city of Somersworth, December 9th, 2024. Whereas January 15th, 2025 will mark the 96th birthday of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., and whereas the dream of equal treatment is the foundation of human rights and democratic values. And whereas our nation has worked towards the goal of fulfillment of this commitment for over 245 years. And whereas the city of Somersworth has become a model of a community which embraces and promotes its diversity. And whereas the city of Somersworth is committed to the values of equality and liberty stated in the Declaration of Independence, United States Constitution, New Hampshire State Constitution, and City Charter. And whereas the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., reminded us that freedom, liberty, and equality must be protected for all citizens, and that from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Somersworth encourages all residents, including community groups, schools, and institutions, to continue to work toward fulfilling Dr. King's dream of the elimination of all barriers to the fulfillment of equal opportunities and human rights. And the City of Somersworth calls upon all citizens to reflect during this month on the message of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and commit themselves throughout the year to join in the fight for the elimination of all forms of discrimination and disadvantage, and to ensure that everyone has the right to live in the conditions of dignity, respect, and peace. The Somersworth Mayor and City Council hereby declare that January 2025 be Diversity and Equality Month in the City of Somersworth, and that the City of Somersworth, along with all of its citizens, hereby recommits itself to the fulfillment of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. Sponsored by Mayor Matt Girding, Councilors David A. Witham, Nancy Cameron, Crystal Parody Catanzaro, Richard Michaud, Kenneth S. Vincent, Martin Pepin, approved City Attorney.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind doing a second reading for Resolution 26-25.
Resolution number 2625, proclamation declaring January Diversity Month in the City of Somersworth.
Thank you. Resolution 26-25, having been read a first and second time, is now open to further amendment. Seeing no amendment, Chair is looking for a motion on Resolution 26-25. Councilor Witham.
Move for its adoption.
Councilor Witham moves to the adoption of Resolution 26-25, seconded by Councilor Goodwin. Motion for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 26-25. Discussion. Councilor Gibson.
I will vote for this, but just as a comment, it seems sad that we have to actually have a month dedicated to reminding people of the value of diversity in our society. It should be something that the people in this country honor every day of the year. And I hope going forward that in the next 4 years that we don't see that challenged more than it has been already in our history. The strength of this country is the fact of its diversity, always has been. Different people coming together for a common good. And I would like to think that we as a people would honor that, as I said, every day of the week. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? Seeing none, if you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 26-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you're not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parody Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 26-25 has been adopted. Brings us to Resolution 27-25, which is to amend Council Rules and Regulations, Section 7, Order of Business, Section D, regarding political campaign comments. City Clerk, will you please have a first reading for Resolution 27-25?
Resolution number 2725, to amend Council Rules and Regulations, Section 7, Order of Business, Section D. December 9th, 2024. Whereas the Government Operations Committee recommends amending the City Council Rules and Regulations, Section 7, Order of Business, Section D, by striking it in its entirety and replacing it with the following. During any regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council, the mayor and city councilors shall refrain from making any comments directly related to any political campaigns while sitting in the role of mayor or councilor. This does not pertain to any announcement regarding a decision to run or not run for re-election. Any political campaign comments could be made during the comments by visitors' time on the agenda after temporarily recusing himself or herself from participation as mayor or city councilor and joining the public audience. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the City Council approves the aforementioned amendments to the Council Rules and Regulations, Section 7, Order of Business, Section D, effective upon the passage of this resolution. Background. Per City Council Rules and Regulations, Section 12, to amend rules, council rules may be amended or new rules adopted by a 2/3 vote of all members of the council present. Sponsored by Councilors Richard Michaud, Robert Gibson, Paul Goodwin, Nancy Cameron, approved City Attorney.
Thank you. Resolution 27-25, having been read a first time, will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. All right, that brings us to other. Tonight, we have a discussion in regards to extending and improving the public meeting notice requirements, which was requested by the Government Operations Committee. I think, if it's my understanding, and Chairman Mishu, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Government Operations Committee is not looking for a motion from us this evening, but just really insight from each of us individually in regards to what we would be looking for relating to this topic. And I believe the two topics were timeline, so how far out would we want to provide notice to residents, and second being how do we want to provide notice, digitally or otherwise. So again, I'll turn it over to Chairman Mishu if you want to say anything in addition, and then I'll open it up to discussion.
No, you're correct, Your Honor, that that's what we're looking for, a general consensus, what everybody wants to do. But if everybody's comfortable with it, we could probably, I'm not sure if we have to make a resolution or anything to go with it, or ordinance, whatever it is. If we can do it this evening, be fine. If not, they can come back to us, and then at least we'll have a general idea of what council is looking for.
Yeah, I think it would be my recommendation that you take the feedback and then draft a resolution that, as a committee, that could then come back to us as a whole body at a later date, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Great. Councilor Gibson, I see your hand. Go ahead.
First off, I want to thank Mr. Berry and the others who signed the petition, bringing this to our attention. It's always good to see participation from the general public. I can agree with expanding the notification as far as how it's done, but we already published notice of meetings. City council meetings are published a year in advance. Individual subcommittee meetings are noticed within the state requirement, and usually that's anywhere from 4 days to a couple of weeks, depending on whether they're announced at a city council meeting or not. I guess it comes down to, when it comes to the notice, I feel that it would put constraints on the ability of us to react to individual circumstances. If you need, for instance, I believe the state law for public notice is 48 hours if it's published. If something comes up and you have a city ordinance that goes against that, how do you react to a situation? I know I haven't been called to any special city council meetings, but when I was on the school board, there were several instances of that happening, dealing with budgetary issues. And again, I don't want to be less than transparent, but I feel what we're doing already is enough notice to people that if they want to be involved, expanding the media used, I have no problem with. I don't know if that requires an actual action by the council or just a change to the way that the administration publishes the notices. I'm all in favor of transparency, but I think we do a very good job being transparent about what is going on in this council, whether it be at the council level or the subcommittee level. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Other comments? Councilor Berry and then Goodwin.
A couple of the things I'm most concerned with on this was, I think that yes, we can always expand and do a little bit better, but I agree that I think we do a very good job here in the city of Somersworth. The couple of things that always kind of raised in my mind was the inclusion of social media And I think that is one of those that I'm a little bit back and forth on, because yes, it's a great tool, but where do you draw the line? Because there's always a new one coming up, and just because you're not on this one, you could be on that one. And how many are we going to require if we go down that road? So I would like to see if we are going to include that in any way. Again, I think we need to limit that. The other question that kept coming up in my mind was with the text and email sign up. Are we saying that it's going to be, if you sign up, it's for everything and you get an onslaught? Or are we going to try to do like sign up for these, for this, and how many of those are we going to have, and how much work does that then add to take away? I'm not sure how that works currently to do that. So that would be my other big concern. Like, I do feel like we can always do better, but I just don't want to also bury a task on somebody to just add those things to this. Those were the biggest ones that come up in my mind, because again, I think there's some new platforms out there I'm not even fully aware of. I do some very basic ones, but again, I know they're always growing, and I feel like it kind of opens up a, well, you did it over here, but you didn't do it over here conversation. So I think we just need to be very specific if we do open that door.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you. I'm trying to recall the specifics of our conversation. I feel like in the committee, we covered government ops. We covered a lot of ground on this topic, and ultimately couldn't draw any conclusions to give a specific recommendation to council, thus having this discussion now. I know the petitioner, Richard Brooks, is here. I do think it would be helpful for him. Just, it's been a long meeting. He did have a spiel at the beginning of the meeting, but perhaps to refresh our memory as to exactly what his overall objective was. But I will restate the general objective as I understand it, and which I generally agree with, which is, not one to burden staff with minutia of posting on many different social media or weeks and weeks ahead of meetings, but rather to be more proactive than the state minimum requirements, which we obviously comply with, and sort of implement our own best practices with the hope that that encourages engagement. And we have all had residents at one time or another come to us and say, I didn't know this was happening. And I've been on that side of the table. One of the reasons I ran for council was because I kind of felt like that happened more than I would like it to. And sure, now I get multiple weekly emails from the clerk and other staff that keep me informed because they are reaching out to me. And I think that is something, I would be interested in exploring something like that, like a listserv that someone can sign up for. So if they want to be someone that is proactively engaged with meeting notices, that it's essentially, some sort of copy paste or grafted onto essential internal distributions to council that already happen to keep us proactively informed. Because that's all, 90% of the documents we get in these emails are public documents, right? So I don't think it's a particularly big ask. It would be voluntary for people who want to enroll. I do think there's some conversation around broadening our posting. Again, like the physical postings are great, but like obviously they are a legacy of a different era. I agree that we don't want to go down the rabbit hole of trying to be everywhere. I think that is a fool's errand, but I do think trying to be where people are more is a good objective. So that's my sort of ramble. If without objection, I would appreciate if the petitioner could just, within a few sentences, remind us what the crux of their case was, just so we are fresh. I think all of us are a bit fatigued at this time of the evening.
So Councillor Goodwin's looking for a suspension of council rules without objection from the council. I see a hand. Objection. Okay, so we're going to go to a vote. So again, there will be a vote on suspension of council rules to allow Mr. Brooks to come speak. Motion made by Councillor Goodwin. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Michoud. Again, Motion before us is suspension of council rules to allow Mr. Brooks to speak. Quick discussion. Okay, seeing none. If you are in favor of the motion, you'll state by saying aye. If you are opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Mr. Brooks, you are allowed to come up and speak.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. If you wouldn't mind, I think you get it, but give us a quick rundown again, if you wouldn't.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to come up and address this. So obviously, a 24-hour meeting notice is all that's required by the state with a couple of postings. Yes, the meetings may be posted a year ahead, but what is being discussed? That is where the general public loses the ability to know what's going on. Sure, they can look up and see there's a meeting. Do I want to go? I don't know. I don't know what they're discussing. So having some sort of agenda that's posted out in a proactive form, either through email, text. I did say social media. I'm really kicking back on social media, and the way I worded that was to include but not limited to. So take your pick. I think email or text alert is the best way. It gets somebody that wants to sign up for it. They get it. They get it in real time, not through some algorithm that might give them to them a week after, like social media would do. So I'm really not a fan of social media either. But definitely an agenda that reaches out to the public to get what's on the agenda with more than a 24-hour notice. For me to hear about something and then have to make plans or adjust my schedule to be at a meeting is tough to do on 24 hours. I think that 7 days is fairly reasonable. Many of the boards have a 14-day deadline for an agenda. I know that's not the case with all of them. Some of them are shorter. And again, if you read my petition, it said except for in the case of emergency, just like New Hampshire law does. You can actually do a meeting in less than 24 hours in case of an emergency. I think 24 hours should be required either way, but again, in case of emergency, there is a quicker way to do it. Just trying to be proactive, get the information out there to where people can get involved if they want to, but you can't expect somebody to go onto their phone and scroll and look it up every day. What might be happening today? It's nearly impossible. If it reached out to them and they saw that and said, oh, in a few days this is happening, I want to be there, they can make the plans to be there. That's what I'm after. I hope that answered your question, and I'll certainly stay for a moment if you have any other clarifications, or I can have a seat.
That's a good one. You are still recognized.
Thank you, and thank you. I have no further questions, but I would note that again, as Mr. Brooks stated, and as several of our other rules and the council, we have sort of a best practices like 24-hour notice or 14-day whatever. And we have an ability to override our rules, such as we did this evening for grant money, to expedite a process when there is urgency. So, if there's an urgent matter that requires a committee to meet within whatever notice we decide, we can waive rules or it can be scheduled without that notice. But it just is to strive for getting a longer lead time so people have an opportunity to engage. And I think that the other thing that Mr. Brooks noted, which I think is a good precedent, is that the land use boards do have significant notification requirements. And obviously that's a much higher bar given the implications of the actions happening on those boards. But consequential work happens at the committee level and in this room, and there is nowhere near the requirement. There's no active outreach at all. Right? It is all passive, and it is hard enough, and I hope I'm not the only one on this board, that it's hard enough, even with proactive messaging from staff with detailed, very simple, calendars and schedules to stay on top of everything. So I do think it's interesting that I would argue one of, if not the most engaged citizen that attends almost every meeting is telling us this is hard, is saying this is hard, to me is the canary in the coal mine saying, yeah, it is hard. And I know it from firsthand, so I'm sympathetic to this, and I hope that we can find something that kind of nudges us towards the direction of more active engagement.
Other questions for Mr. Brooks while we have him? Councilor Perry? No.
Question.
Question for Mr. Brooks while we have him. Yes, Councilor Barry.
I think I asked you this, but I just want to remind myself here. When you put this petition together, I mean, I know you just stated that you weren't necessarily looking for the social media aspect, so things are already kind of changing a little bit, but did you talk with any of city staff about like any of the hindrances to get to the requirements you put on the petition?
I did not speak with city staff about it, but I will note that being on various boards and committees within the city, we often get an email of the agenda coming up. That's exactly the same sort of thing that you could simply add the public to and allow them the access as well. So I think it's a very simple ask. Just another comment, if you don't mind briefly. When I collected these signatures was on election day, so it was pretty easy to collect people up, and almost everybody that signed this was willing to sign it before I finished saying the title of the petition. They're like, yes, I want to sign that. Other than the ones that were just too busy to talk to me for whatsoever. They just, you could tell they were there to vote and off to the voting. Didn't want to talk to anybody. But everybody that took the time to listen for the first few words said yes before I could finish saying it. And I went through the spiel, explained to them the details while they were signing it and filling out their addresses they needed to. And most of them said, yeah, why wouldn't we do 7 days? I'm like, that's funny. That's exactly what this is asking for. So it's almost secondhand that people seem to think 7 days was more than reasonable.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Brooks? Okay, thank you for coming up and speaking.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, other discussion about this topic? Councilor Perry Catanzaro?
Yes, I think a couple of tangible things that I think could very easily meet several of these qualifications. I don't know if anyone has ever been on a listserv where you can literally just email an email address and anyone can sort of self-serve sign up for that. You can do that through Google. We already use Google Drive. That would be a pretty simple way to do it. Just literally set up, public notices and then the clerk, the manager's assistant, whoever is sending out public notices, anything with that PN in the subject line, just BCC the listserv. There are also great technology fixes for this that could be implemented in the future, only because I don't know what our current website platform capabilities are, but on most website content management systems, people can sign up to automatically get notified anytime a new post under certain parameters are posted. So if a public notice with an agenda attached is posted under boards and commission or city council or any of those categories, those are things that you could sign up to receive. Again, some of that's kind of technical, so is this a new website feature? But again, there are some pretty easy free tools that could take what city staff are already doing with these public notices and just BCC a listserv. I do think the agenda piece is really important. And, as the chair of a committee, I always have to provide an agenda when the public notice is posted. So typically the agenda is on the public notice. I don't know if it always is, but it feels like it should be at least attached to the public notice. And the other thing that I think can fall through the cracks pretty easily that I don't know that anyone outside of council and maybe staff would get an alert to is sometimes agendas change. And so if you as a citizen were to look on the website, you might already know about a meeting and you've already looked at that meeting and there's nothing on the agenda that you want to see. How would you possibly know to click on that and look for an updated agenda? So that's something that this type of email notification system would solve. When something is sent out as a public notice or an agenda update, that's something that people could be notified for as well. And that's all on the sort of the mechanics of any sort of active versus passive thing. In terms of a timeline, I think, 7 days or 5 business days is totally reasonable. I think the one place that I know already that would push our schedules a little bit is I believe the council meeting agendas are only set, is it Wednesday or Thursday? And then, so the public notices and the agendas don't come out until Friday when the meeting's not till Monday. That's kind of a tight turnaround, and I think, the process in general could be moved back a day or two. I don't know if that would make it easier or harder for city staff going past just the first implementation of it, so to speak. So if those are moved back a week or moved back a couple of days, it seems like just that initial implementation would be the hump to get over. And then, as multiple people have stated, anytime there's an emergency meeting or anytime there's an emergency addition to a council meeting, those things could be addressed on a ad hoc basis. But those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you. I have Councilor Gibson and then with them, Councilor Gibson.
Okay. Not against transparency, so I understand the point of this petition. My big concern would be how much of an impact it would have on city staff. If there is the technological means readily available for lists to be compiled and have the information forwarded to them, then I don't have a problem with extending out the timeline. I just don't want city staff to constantly be punching in addresses or something to get information out to people. So.
Thank you. Councilor Witham?
All good discussion. I quite frankly am still not quite sure what we're trying to do. I get that we perhaps want to let residents know that we're meeting about these agenda items sooner, and we want to push that to them through some means, whether it's email or text. Those are mechanics, but why? Do we think that more people will show up here if we do that? I am not of the opinion that that will happen. I think even if the 100+ people that signed the petition got notified of agendas 7 days in advance, I'd be willing to bet that none of them would show up at a meeting to comment on anything. So I'm not sure what we're trying to do here. I think there's a general apathy in the public about what goes on in municipal government, and it's all okay until it's not okay, right? City budget being a good example, what, 40-something million that we address at every meeting in every April of every year. And most of the time, we have nobody that comes. I'm announcing it now. So at the meetings in April, there'll be discussion of a $40+ million budget, which impacts your tax rate. We could email everybody about that, and I would bet that no one comes. So I'm not sure what we're after here. If the goal is we'd like people to come, I agree. I'd like people to come, but we could fly a blimp around the city with an announcement and an agenda. I don't think anybody's going to come. That being said, I'm okay with considering various endeavors, but I'd look for the committee to bring those back to me with a very specific thing, because right now I'm not sure where to aim the dart. I guess we're just having this general discussion. The idea of an email push, in theory, sounds very good, but as Councilor Parity Catanzaro indicated, there are some technological challenges to that. I know at my workplace, if we try to push out too many emails, the system doesn't like us. It views us as a bot and as a cyber hack, so it stops us. So I'd be concerned about that and about cyber vulnerabilities coming back. So I just want to make sure that we vet out that technology thoroughly. I know that text alerts can be done, but you have to buy a system for those mass text alerts. So there could be a cost element here, depending upon what we do. So I just want to be mindful of that. In terms of the timeline, I suppose more notice is good. When it comes to our agenda items, that's sort of why we have the first and second reading over 2 meetings. So the first meeting is like, hey, public, this is happening. You better come to the next meeting. And I'll be the first to admit that I'm sort of the champion of suspension of rules for the second reading on certain evenings. But if you look at what I champion to do, it's sort of the paperwork minutia stuff, the apply for a grant or things of that nature, stuff that I've never had anybody come and comment on at council meetings. It's just trying to push things through. When it comes to setting committee meeting agendas, finance and public works, I would argue, are two that meet rather frequently. Typically, I wait to get a communication from the city manager. Hey, we have these things percolating. We need to look at road resurfacing projects. We need to look at our discharge permit at the wastewater plant. We need to look at PFAS issues at the fire station. And those items begin to percolate to the surface. And when we have enough of them, we say, let's schedule a meeting. We look at meeting availability dates for staff, for myself as chair. We identify a date or two, see if you can get a quorum. Yes, we can get a quorum. Okay, post the agenda, post the meeting. And we go back and forth to approve that. More often than not, that's well in excess of 7 days in advance. It's typically the week before. It's very seldom that that's less than a handful of days. So I think we're already meeting that requirement there. I think in general, we meet it with the council agendas because of the first and second reading. So I'm without strong persuasion, and I hope people know me well enough that I can be persuaded, I'm going to be hard pressed to be changing on the number of days, but I would be open to the technology, notwithstanding some of these issues that may be in the way of that.
Thank you. All right, Councilor Cameron.
Yes, thank you. I think in committee we had kind of figured out that the 7 day in advance was, we were doing that already, or maybe even sooner than that. I also agree with Council Witham about the technology piece as far as taxing the city employees and keeping them up to date. Is there going to be an expense? Who's going to be in charge of it? Little things like that. I'm not against them, but I'm not tech savvy by any means, but you know, for somebody to take that on, it almost seems like we'd have to have one person in charge of sending out the emails or having the community sign up for text messaging or different things like that. So that's another thing to consider, I would think, as Councilor Witham had pointed out, with that piece of it. But I kind of agree. We are doing some of that already, so. And I think that's where we kind of came to a standstill in the committee, because we couldn't make much headway further moving forward.
Thank you. Other discussion? We have Councilor Gibson and then Councilor Barry.
I just want to second both Councilor Cameron and Councilor Williams, because that is a couple of things I hadn't thought of myself. We basically do it already, so.
Thanks. Councilor Barry.
I'm just curious, and I would possibly move to suspend rules because I believe we have someone here tonight who could answer how they possibly feel because they do some of this currently. I'm just curious if the council has an appetite to ask questions of that person.
Who are you? Yeah.
To your left.
City Clerk?
Yes.
Yeah, if the council's all right without objection, ask some questions of the city. City manager is not a fan. But again, we'll leave it to the council if there's no objection.
What is the question? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, Councilor Barry, if you could.
I was just curious if some city staff had any further comment on where they think that this could go, or maybe spearhead us, or because it sounds, again, I feel like we're at kind of the same committee where we're not quite sure kind of.
I'm going to let the city manager answer first maybe, and then.
Yeah, with all due respect, I think it's putting our city clerk sort of on the spot. If council has that type of a question, I'll be happy to meet with staff. It would be more than just the city clerk. It would be my secretary who assists with that. It would be the deputy city clerk. It would be the director of finance and administration. So if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to meet with them to offer some answers.
Okay.
But the council obviously can overrule that suggestion.
Of course, certainly. But I think maybe just to add clarity to that is that this is, maybe what I'm understanding is like this hasn't been vetted out through city staff, and there's probably some ideas that could be come up with, but it would need to take time and effort and energy to do so.
Yeah, well, I'd like clearer direction from the council as to what they want to do. My understanding, I was at the meeting with the Government Operations Committee, was for all meetings. So all meetings would be perhaps subject to this. It included school meetings. I don't know how we enforce school board parameters. Oftentimes at committee meetings or even at council meetings, they're not emergencies, but we have miscellaneous things that come up that came in the mail after the agenda was posted. I think reposting agendas all the time can be very confusing to the public on why it's being changed. Just the last Public Works and Environment Committee meeting, I had some last-minute correspondence. Instead of reposting, it came in like the day before the meeting that we took up under miscellaneous. So and I thought it was important instead of trying to reschedule another meeting a week down the line. It's not like all the councilors, I'm not making excuses and not trying to turn it back to you folks, but it is difficult sometimes to get a quorum, hence the mayor is always allowed for a temporary appointment. So, but then regular committee members are sometimes, not staying in the flow of what their committee assignments are. So, I mean, there's a lot of logistical issues. I'm happy to talk with staff, but I needed more direction from the council as far as what I'm supposed to investigate, and what type of changes we need, such as the counselor on my left there, one of the counselors on my left mentioned about council rules. We have to shift several things. So that's why I thought it was just a little too soon for putting staff on the spot to provide some research and answers.
Thank you. Councilor Barry, you're still recognized, and then we'll have, I had Councilor Michoud and then with him.
Actually, that gave perfect what I was looking for. Like, again, that it would creates a lot of people are involved in this, and there's a lot of things that would need to be vetted out. So that actually answered my perfect question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Michoud.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to thank all the councilors for their input. It definitely gave me a clear direction where I want to go with this, and we'll definitely take it up at the next government ops meeting. So all your input, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rosen.
I'm glad Councilor Michou's clear for his committee, because I am not. If I had to get out of this room with the map we just gave, I'd be bumping into everything. Not clear at all. Not to be sort of snippet about the issue, because I guess a good conversation. But as a committee chair, I suppose I could post meeting agendas as agenda item A, miscellaneous, agenda item B, adjourn, and post those 7 days in advance, right? I would never do that. I don't think we want to do that, right? But again, if the goal is to get more public participation, I'm not sure more advance notice, email pushers are going to do that. I think it's a much deeper rooted issue that is, people lead busy lives, and unless you're like a government geek like all of us are, because that's why we're sitting here at 9:20 on a Monday night, most people, unless it's happening in their backyard across the street, they're just not dialed into it. It's just, so if that's where we want to go, is more public engagement, I'm not sure this gets us there. I'm just not.
Thanks. All right, we're going to do Councilor Goodwin, and then I actually have some kind of summarizing comments, if that's all right. Councilor Goodwin.
Yes. I don't disagree with Councilor Witham that this is not some sort of engagement panacea. I don't think any of us are under the delusion that this is going to be a tide turner and suddenly this room is going to be full in every meeting because everyone's so engaged. But that is not a reason not to have the discussion. That's not a reason to assess our practices to see if they are current to where society is at. I don't think they are. I don't think it is a good reason to not investigate this because we already do much of it. The council rules, by and large, are completely made up and self-governed by council. They're essentially council guidelines. And I think we should strive to have good guidelines. And if we need to amend the guidelines from time to time or ad hoc them because an email came in that needs to go under miscellaneous or whatever the circumstance is, we can all think of a dozen different reasons why, if you get hyper fixated on the trees when we're talking about the forest, it gets difficult. Like, let's not focus on the trees right now. The goal here is to be more proactive with city government, because we care about our community and want to communicate to our community in a proactive manner what is happening in a better fashion. We are already doing a good job. I think we self-acknowledge that. We are doing more than the state requires. We strive to get agendas pulled together in a timely fashion, posted in a timely fashion with detailed agendas. But I think our guidelines can be reevaluated. I think there is an opportunity to make them maybe a little more, I don't know, just like pushing us to formalize some of the best practices we already follow by chance or by desire. I agree with Councilor Michaud. I think I actually do have a reasonable idea of sort of giving council feedback how we need to start at the committee level to tighten this conversation up. But much of the sort of murkiness that we're having at the council level now was happening at the community level, and we knew that if at the community level we couldn't come up with something concise, then it was doomed to fail at council. So this is, I hope folks value that this is, despite it not feeling it for some people, a productive conversation.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to kind of summarize and move us forward. Do you have a? Okay, yes, you may,
Well,
but I do, yes, absolutely. I
Would
do
you
want
rather
to
now
start.
or after your summary?
No, you can go now before, because I want to kind of summarize and move us on. I do want to just make a point that from after Councilor Parity-Canzero, if you have already spoken and have further thoughts, please email them to the committee. Councilor Pepin, you haven't said a word. You are more than willing to chime in because you have yet to share your thoughts, but I would say the same to you if you are interested.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I am happy the way the situation is now. I think it puts more burden on staff than what is going to generate on the outside what it is. Whenever I see people come into the city council, it's usually because they got it off the web somewhere, or wherever their social media is, or whatever they are, and it's usually because it's something that they dislike, that affects them personally or whatever in their neighborhood. I don't know how else to get that information out. Like I say, we sit here and we say all kinds of things to people. We try to send out notices, and we try to do things public. I've always said that, the biggest thing in the city that affects the people is our tax rate and city elections and who sits up here and who doesn't sit up here. But outside of that, I just think people kind of like tune us out till it hits their needs or affects them personally. So I'm perfectly fine the way situations are right now. So I guess that's where I stand.
Thank you. All right, Councilor Parity-Canzero, and then I'm going to
Thanks. Yeah. I would just sort of broadly argue that the more specific things are, the more likely people are to show up. So seeing things that are just happening in their backyard might spark that engagement. But just for some really tangible takeaways, I think there's a few things we can do with very little effort on top of what we do already. Maybe just starting with some short-term and limited meetings, like maybe only city council meetings, and it's a once-a-week email. But I do think we should also add into our long-term, kind of like our CIP. We know we need an updated website, and this is a thing that maybe should be on a time-limited agenda somewhere that we vet out, here are our broad goals. Can you give us a really easy tech solution so that just because it's kind of tricky right now, we don't lose sight of trying to solve this in a year or two?
Thank you. All right, so I wanted to share at least my perspective as mayor, because I am one of the individuals who sets one of the agendas that would need to be posted. And so personally, the process that exists as of right now is I essentially work with city staff to generate an agenda that I see and approve on Wednesdays in advance of city council meetings. That then goes back to city staff to kind of get out and get ready, share with councilors, share with the public, post on the website, et cetera, and that's done Thursday or Friday in advance of our meetings, which we then have on Monday. If we think a bit about timelines for these things, to get something onto the agenda for the city council, for me to be able to put it on, usually it's a resolution or an ordinance that has gone through a committee that probably met at least a week or two in advance of that. That worked to get it on their agenda probably a week in advance of that. So that gives us 3 potential weeks before it makes it onto the first reading of a council agenda. That then means it has 2 weeks after that meeting, so 5 weeks before it gets on for its second reading. And so really, realistically, there's a potential for a 5-week window of time from when it's first posted in, or first discussed as being added to a committee agenda to hopefully getting passed at the council level. Now, certainly there's exceptions where things get passed sooner than that due to maybe overrides of second readings or things like that. But I do think that for really, for a number of the things that we work with, that 5-week period actually is a long time. There's a lot of things that we need to get done even sooner than that 5 weeks that I think if we were to extend longer would make that more difficult. I personally think if I was needing to have my agenda ready maybe the week before council, so the Monday before, that means I'm approving it actually really the Friday or the Thursday before, the week before. So, the 2 weeks, not really 2 weeks, but a week and a half before, right? That then pushes things off, which means that we're less nimble and less likely to be able to react to things and say something like a grant or something that maybe is really important for the city might just get delayed or pushed off or who knows what. And so I'm not saying that I don't think that there's room for improvement here, but I am saying that I think it will make us less nimble and less likely to be able to do certain things as a city. And again, if we generally agree, which I'm not sure after discussions tonight, because that's kind of the other thing I said I would do is summarize, that we want to extend that period, absolutely. I would request let's start with 48 hours if we really are looking to extend, because that just adds an additional day, and then see if that works well instead of jumping to something more extreme that we're really maybe not prepared to be able to handle a week or 2. But I think small incremental change might actually be ideal for something like this rather than a big leap. In terms of summarizing the second piece to this, which is the updates for residents, I think generally, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, we all seem to agree that, yeah, we're interested in maybe seeing what exists. So I would task the committee to maybe look into options and ideas, maybe contracting with somebody. Maybe we need to add something into our budget that the city manager mentioned that we're going to start discussing soon to be able to purchase an app or something, software system that does this for us. But I think that there's a lot of potential ideas. And again, sounds like city staff's going to be maybe discussing this going forward too, that they could provide to you all as a committee and that you can then provide to us for hopeful final approval. But really phenomenal discussion. Sounds like the chair has a lot of great ideas to work with, and thank you for bringing it forward to us to discuss, and thank you to the residents who alerted us of this potential need. So without further ado, I think we are going to move on to item 17, which is comments by visitors. Again, Somersworth City Council and Mayor's Office welcome all visitors and encourage you to voice your opinions and views at council meetings in accordance with Council Rule 7-C. Time limit of 5 minutes per person shall be in effect unless the council wishes to suspend the rules. Speaker shall not enter into a debate with any person, the mayor, city council members, city manager, or department heads. Is there anyone who wishes to speak this evening? Yes, come on up. Again, state your name and ward in which you live.
Hi, it's me again. Bonnie McNair, Ward 1. I didn't say that last time. But we all know who I am by now. So I just have a couple of comments in witnessing this discussion, which also was amazing to see you all discussing something like this. I haven't seen that before. I think that Councilor Witham came up with the most important point, which is where is this going to get us? What are we hoping to achieve by doing this change, right? I know you're trying to move us along, but I'm taking it. No. So I think one thing he said was what we may be facing is a a deeper issue, right? If what we're hoping to gain by this is engagement, this might not be the solution. And I would agree that civic engagement as a whole, just from a chamber standpoint, from any standpoint, anytime the organizations I work with are trying to get people involved, it's like literal pulling teeth. And I think there is a civic engagement issue that needs to be addressed. Something I've been considering with the chamber programming has been to devise a civic engagement program, like Civics 101. How do you engage? When should you engage? What are your responsibilities as a citizen? And that's something I would love to explore with the council and for the town. But I do think that, I mean, obviously there are tech options out there that are very much worth exploring, that are very easy to institute. And as Councillor Pepin said, nobody thinks about us until it hits their backyard. And we need to get people more engaged before that point. So as a chamber, I'm already thinking of this, and I would love to work with you all to kind of get that civic engagement up to where it should be. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to make comments this evening? Visitors? Again, if you wouldn't mind, say your name and ward in which you live.
Richard Brooks, 18 Linden Street, Ward 1. And yes, I certainly agree there is a significant problem of apathy regarding politics, local government, whatever you want to call it. People are just simply too busy trying to make a living and do not have time. Part of this reason is our taxes are so high. Keep that in mind. Nothing's affordable anymore. It's not an easy life out there for anybody, I'm sure of it. So, you know, I wish people would get involved. I think if you give them the information, maybe they'll choose to be. But without the information, they're never going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to speak this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move to agenda item 18, which is closing comments by councilors. Remember, we have less than 30 minutes before we have to suspend rules for our 10 o'clock time limit. So just a reminder, we've all talked a lot. All right. On my list, remember I start with councilors kind of in order, rotating. So Councilor Gibson, you are up first.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. Number one, I wanted to thank Chief Macklin for his many years of service to the city. We will definitely miss you. Other than that, because we aren't going to be here before, I really wish that we could live up to the saying, peace on earth in this season. We can all hope, but I all wish you a very merry holiday season and a great new year.
Thank you. Councilor Parity-Catanzara.
Thank you. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., we are meeting for our Community Outreach and Communications Committee. So a little bit overlapping with what we have talked about. We're going to be talking about a simple way to get folks welcome packets to new residents, sort of taking that same approach of what's something we can do immediately and pretty small, and that builds on stuff we have already just to direct people to where that is. And then how can we think about that going forward? So if anybody has your favorite thing that you learned or thing that took you a while to find as a resident, please send me a note before that committee meeting tomorrow at 6, or you're welcome to join us. And also, just ending the year, just wanted to thank city staff for doing just a ton of great work this year, and certainly we'll miss the chief. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Michoud.
Thank you. Just want to congratulate Mr. Belmore, City Manager, the Citizen of the Year, well deserving. And also like to congratulate Chief Macklin on his upcoming retirement. I can tell you, you will enjoy it. And thank you for your many years of service here in the community. We really appreciate it. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Witham?
Yeah, thank you. A couple of just rather pragmatic things to comment on tonight. With the 2 school board resignations tonight, that'll now be 3 vacancies on the school board, wards 2, 4, and 5. And it's right in the middle of their budget season before they present. The timing could not be worse, and I know that everybody's circumstances are what they are, but Ward 4, one of our largest wards in the city, and that has remained vacant for, well, months and months now. So I guess this is a plea to the public. Going back to the apathy discussion, right? We need people to be involved. That's a concerning development with the school board. My other comment, I watched the most recent ZBA meeting, and there was an auto auction company, I think Mannheim is the name, that is looking to utilize the old Key Auto Center on the corner of Blackwater Road and Route 108. Frankly, I think it's perhaps a very good reuse of that property. There was much debate at the ZBA whether or not they even needed to be there or not, but they did grant the variance. But one of the things that came to mind is that they are talking about fencing the property for security. And one of those fences would, and again, because it's a corner lot, they basically have 2 front yards. They'll have, I'm guessing the fence is going to be higher than 4 feet. So that's probably going to have to go back before the ZBA because they'll need that relief. So I know Michelle has left, but I'm hoping that that can get flagged so they don't come to the planning board, then have to go back. It's a detail, but we need to be mindful of those details. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Goodwin?
Just wanted to echo the congratulations to Chief Macklin on his retirement. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And Councilor Cameron?
Thank you, Your Honor. Congratulations, Mr. Belmore, on your Citizen of the Year. Welcome to the club. I was nominated many years ago, and many fine people have come after me. Be on the lookout for the map for the lighting contest, because that's going to be up very soon. Okay, so make sure you drive around town and see all the wonderful lights. Thank you to everybody who came to the parade. It was a huge success. And Shop of the Cop is Wednesday night. I have the pleasure of doing that, not as a Walmart associate, but as a city delegate. So I'll be there walking around with our finest. And Merry Christmas to everybody, and see you next year.
Thank you. Councilor Barry?
I'm going to be a little redundant with others, but congratulations to our city manager, and unfortunately goodbye to our chief. So sad to see you go as well. Just kind of going back a little bit to engagement, again, kind of echoing that we have 3 school board member positions open. I believe we have 3 HDC open. We have planning, we have zoning. I believe we have openings on almost every single board. So if you want to get involved, we really want you to, and there's numbers of openings. And also another thing that I think we hear about a lot for those who want engagement is, where did our money go? What are we doing with this? And to echo some points made earlier, that's when budgeting comes in. And if you're really curious about where our money is going, if you tune into some of the city council, like, you hear about some of the grants we get where we're not spending our money, we're getting other money to help fund some of this stuff. But it is very enlightening if you do come and actually hear some of the good stuff that your money's going towards. You're going to get your tax bill soon. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Pepin?
Yes, Chief, thank you for all your years of service. I know we've worked together in past years and stuff like that, and our city's going to lose a lot, losing you. So, congratulations on your retirement. Just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's, and please be safe during New Year's. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item 19, which is future agenda items. We've flagged for Public Works and the Environment concerns about the water tower. It was brought up to me earlier to remind folks, I think it was Public Safety, about dog leash laws. I don't think that had made its way to them. And then I had one that I noticed. You brought up the traffic lights. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I keep forgetting to mention it. I don't know where it should go, but I'm flagging it anyway. the Home Depot and Walmart High Street intersection lights. When you are turning from Home Depot on left onto High Street, I think there should be a green arrow there. I think, and I just want to say that out loud, and I don't know if that needs where that needs to go. Okay, but I'm pretty sure it needs to be traffic safety done. Beautiful. All right, other future agenda items. Yes, Councilor Party Catanzaro.
I don't know if this is an agenda or just a request, but just an updated board vacancies list. We had a really good one that we received recently, but as has been mentioned, we've had a couple of other vacancies, and so an updated list would be great for us to have, and then also for the city to share.
We can make that happen for sure. Other future agenda items? All right, moving on. We have no non-public session tonight, so it's item 21, which is adjournment. We're going to do Councilor Pepin moves the council stand in adjournment till the next meeting, seconded by Councilor Michaud. Question for the council is adjournment. If you're in favor, please say it by saying aye. If you're opposed, please say it by saying nay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.